Hello, sir.
Good morning. How are we doing?
Good.
Finally got it working. All
Yeah.
good.
How are you doing?
Good. Leo Costa Jr. Good.
Yes,
Thank you.
I want to make sure. I'm assuming based on your Instagram name, your name is Charles.
My last name is Charles. My first name is Echo. Yeah.
Oh, it is Echo. I wasn't quite sure about that, so I wanted to identify that first of all. I'll call you by the right name. Anyway.
Yep. All good.
So welcome to Serious Grow Podcast. I'm going to ask you: are you located in California?
Yeah, San Diego.
Oh, okay. So I'm not too. Oh, I'm actually about 6 hours away from you. I'm in the central part.
Oh, okay. Right on.
Have you ever been to like Fresno?
Yeah, I was in Fresno a few months ago. Well, a little town right above Fresno a few months ago for a podcast we were recording.
Yeah, I'm 40 minutes away. I'm 40 minutes south, so I'm in between Fresno and Bakersfield. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, nice to meet you. Listen, one thing that I know for sure, I'm pretty sure, is it's obvious that you train with weights. You train with a lot of weights, and I'm always interested in knowing with people, what is it that why did you start weight training to begin with?
Okay. To begin with, I think it was like anyone else. I just kind of wanted to be a little bigger, a little stronger, whatever. This was like maybe, when you're, 14, 15 years old. But I kind of, remember the show American Gladiators?
Oh, yeah.
So I used to watch that all the time. And I used to like the gladiators better than the contestants because they were big and strong and they could do everything. So I remember that show specifically was the one that I looked at and I was like, it would be cool to be big and strong and athletic like those guys. So I always had, and this was maybe, I'm 9, 10 years old, something like that. And so I just sort of kind of kept that in my mind. And then, when you hit puberty, I played sports growing up as well. So, I was always encouraged to lift weights and get stronger and train and stuff like that. So, but for some reason, I thought getting bigger and stronger, that element was always appealing to me. And so I just kind of kept on it,
Yeah, it's a different reason. Like with me, it's funny how times and things change all the time. Your coaches were, and when you were playing, I'm assuming it was football that you're talking about?
Yeah, football and track.
What position did you play? I assume it's a specialty position.
Yeah, I played wide receiver. Back in those days, I played high school and at the University of Hawaii, but I was a lot smaller back then. So, maybe 40 pounds less than I am now. But yeah, wide receiver.
And the crazy thing is back in my day, I came through high school in 73. Mm-hmm. And for guys that were playing specialty positions back then, the coaches didn't want us anywhere near the gym. It was all for linemen. That was the mentality. Yeah. And I think to some degree, as I look back, it was probably a good thing, at least in my area, because a lot of these coaches didn't really know how to train athletes for specific positions. And so consequently, what ends up happening, if you don't know how to train somebody for explosive power, you actually make somebody bigger and slower. So that doesn't help the specialty position. So it's really interesting how things really have evolved now, to the nth degree. Oh, yeah. But okay, so you got into this weight training, and let's just fast forward to how was that weight training? Are you ex-military?
No, I don't have any military background. My partner Jocko, he's a military guy.
Gotcha. Okay, so how has weight training? Like for me, when I got into it at the age of 27. For the simple reason I was in the worst shape of my life at 27. I was a college athlete, and all of a sudden those days were gone. Yeah. And I was kind of lost for a while, back on that family, dairy, yada, yada. And I was just in horrible shape. And that's why I got into it. And of course, once I did my first bodybuilding show, changed my whole life. So where has weight training taken you as far as a part of your story as to where you're at right now?
Yeah. So actually, I know you said fast forward, but I'm going to rewind.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah,
very relevant. So when I first started lifting weights, it was with a friend, one of our good friends. His dad was a coach, a football coach, a baseball coach and stuff like this. And it was the basic, I didn't know anything about it. I'm like 13, 14 years old. And it was the basic 5 sets of 5, just get familiar with the weights and all this stuff. And I was like, cool, really liked it. And I was like, cool. And then as kind of time went on, you start lifting weights with this guy and that guy and this coach, and I very much enjoyed it. So we'd be into, you buy the bodybuilding magazines and all that. I never wanted to be a bodybuilder, but big muscles to me that was legit to me, Yeah. So you buy bodybuilding magazines and you're looking for the program or the supplement or the whatever, right? Like the thing that's going to get you bigger and stronger than everybody else, kind of a thing. And me, my brother, and a couple of my friends or whatever, we came across, it was your ad, the Serious Growth ad. And it was claiming these like ridiculous claims. It was like, oh yeah, in 5 weeks, I went from this to this. And I was like, and you're young, so you kind of believe it. But then the maturing part of your brain is like, I never heard of that much. Like,
sounds too good to be true.
Yeah. So, but hey, to me, hey, I'm down. I'll just buy this program and whatever. Bro, I bought that program. Not only was it absolutely true, you got to follow it. That's what one of the things I realized too about a lot of programs and a lot of things. You got to actually do it.
That's right.
So we bought this program, and man, it was so effective. Like it was me, my brother, and it was one of my other friends that did it. And everyone would say, "Oh yeah, those 3 guys, they're on steroids." Like obviously they're on steroids, bro. We're not on steroids. But anyway, so. The results and how quick they came, and keep in mind we're going through puberty too, so we got that boost, that supercharge. Sure. But man, like anything, when you start doing something and you see the results like that quick, that consistently, bro, you just want to do that. Like, right. That's just the whole jam right there. And, other people would come with their different techniques and programs. I was like, bro, no way. Like this program is better. This is like a secret super program, the Bulgarian program they would call it. Leo Costa Jr., Tom Platz, and I think there was like another guy. So anyway, we do it, and bro, to be honest, I have not really deviated from that program that much. I got into other athletics, and just like how you said, there's more athletic specific training that you can do. So I deviated in that way. But to be honest, literally the workout I did yesterday is part of Serious Growth.
I got to tell you something. You don't know how much that humbles me. It's so crazy to be this far, from when we did that. But I got to tell you something, Echo. One of the things I talk about in a lot of the work that I do with videos now, I talk about something that you just hit on. I talk about the process, and that's the part that people just don't really follow through with. They get all excited about something, but they don't have they don't have that process of. This is how you do it. It's these steps to take, and especially like with us, one of the things that we took a lot of heat on, especially the Bulgarian. Do you remember the Bulgarian burst that we did, or did you come in on another version?
So to me, what was that? Maybe 100 years ago or something like that.
At least
so there's like the details I don't remember. Okay, this is what I remember. I remember it was basically there's 2 phases.
Yeah.
And I remember you called the first week of the second phase gains week, which is a term I still use, by the way.
Yeah.
I use it a lot more loosely nowadays, but whatever. And so you'd have the first, if I'm not mistaken, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. This is the actual program.
Yeah.
That was it was kind of harder. It was more of a conditioning phase. It was a lot of, the rest between sets was a lot less. And then boom, all of a sudden, gains week. Cut down the volume a little bit, increase the rest between sets, monitor your diet, and boom, your strength just goes up. That was the it was like, let's say it was maybe a 6-week, 5-week program.
Yeah. So what you're telling me, see, we wrote the very first one that I wrote, just to give you a little bit of, now I'm rewinding and going back, is it was called Bulgarian Burst. And what I did is, maybe you heard the story. I went to Bulgaria. I was able to train with the coaches. It was an eye opener, right? So we come back, and the first program that we put out, we had people training 3 times a day, or recommending that. Yeah. And oh boy, did the boo birds come out, because it's you're going to overtrain and all this kind of stuff. And what they didn't realize back then, and that's still a principle that I believe in. The Bulgarians said, look, if you train 30 to 45 minutes, it's virtually impossible to overtrain your physiology. So it's about not overtraining the body to begin with. And at that time, I don't know about you, at that time, hell, I was in the gym for hour 45, 2 hours at one time. Well, it was negating the overall result that we could have gotten. So when we came out, we knew that this was going to be a chance that we took. But 3 times a week, and then it went from there. Then we went to Serious Growth. This is you're coming in on, I think, the second edition. We had Bulgarian Burst, Serious Growth, Big Man Belief with Tom Platz, and then we did one called Muscle Titan training. Those were the versions that we did. So you came in after the Bulgarian burst one, but that was very controversial. I mean, we took a lot of, but it sold like crazy. I mean, it just happened to work.
Man, it worked really good. And I remember early on when we could really embrace, I'm going to high school. I got a lot of time or whatever, especially in the off season in football, where we're training, we're doing the twice a day one.
Yeah.
And and I get them all mixed up because if I remember correctly, we had serious growth. And then all of a sudden there was serious growth 3, big deal.
Yeah, that was big beyond belief. So at that point, we came out with, you learn as you go. That was a branding thing that we started doing to make sure that we started branding. Hell, we didn't know what the hell we were doing back then with, you learn as you go. So serious growth 3 is big beyond belief. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, yeah. and then there was all these other, because I would follow. I'm down, bro. The first program worked so good. I'm like, hey, whatever this motherfucker's talking about, bro, send me that. So and this is all. It's kind of hazy. Like I said, this is like what 90. I graduated high school in 95. So you figure this was like 94, 93. Right.
Somewhere in that area. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I remember muscle rounds. There's a thing called muscle rounds.
Yeah.
You did like 4 reps, 10 seconds, and what you can do for 8 to 12 or something like this. And
exactly.
Throw that in there sometimes. Like, boom, I'm like, whatever. I remember I bought the VHS tape. It was you and I think it was Tom Platz, where you guys would like
Platz Costa workout. What we decided to do back then is, when you write a program, and again, back then it was like manuals that you bought, there weren't ebooks and shit like that. No way. So the frustration a little bit was like people, when they read something, you try to explain how you should follow through, and do the program. But it's never, in my mind, it's always better when you actually see it happening. And that's what we thought. Let's just show people what the tempo looks like and what it really looks like, because Echo, most people, and I say it's even worse now in my view, most people don't train with that kind of aggressiveness and intensity, and it's important to see that side of it, because that's obviously a part of your results that you're going to get, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. That's such a good point. So when we got that so before we got that VHS tape, for example, I was doing it and I was like, hey, I'm just going to follow whatever he says. And it was cool because it was simple enough where it's me at 16 or whatever, and be like, okay, I follow it, I get it, and I can pick it up and do it successfully. But at the same time, it was detailed enough where you don't go in there and kind of wing it in some ways, and then it doesn't work and you don't know what's going on. So I remember one of the details was like, hey, don't fudge on the rest between sets. Like if it says freaking 90 seconds, like at 90, you better be unracking that thing. So I'm like, okay, good. So, and then, just the intensity and how hard you're going, all that stuff. I was like, okay, cool. We did it. No question there. And then I noticed the same thing when other guys would lift, and keep in mind, this is the only workout program that I've like attached myself to. Yeah. So to me, that was just sort of the way, you know? So I see other people lifting, they'll do their like set of 10. And I'm like, wait, you could have easily got like 5 more reps out of that motherfucker. So it wasn't computer. I was like, oh, okay. And things start to kind of dawn on me in that way. And you mentioned like a demonstration situation, right? Where you can put it down, but if you don't see someone do it, it's like,
it's another dynamic, tie into, and that shows you this is what it really feels like and looks like. And that's why we did that. And I'm going to tell you something, that thing that I did with Tom Platz, between you and me, I've already told Tom this a bunch of times. I've never been afraid and scared to go train. I never have been. But when I met that fucker at Gold's Gym for the first time, I'm going to tell you something. I was in I was fearing for my life, and I'm not kidding you. I've never trained with somebody that guy's got such a mindset, and I can see it in his eyes, Echo. Yeah. His eyes changed, and I said, "Oh fuck, here we go!" And it was wild. So what you saw on that video that we did, that was some real shit. I mean, we didn't like fake it. I mean, hopefully that came across.
Oh, and here's how I know that was real. This is how. Okay, so when we do it, let's say day 1, right? Because it went day 1, day 2, day. So day 1, we're gonna do an incline. 4 sets of 15-minute rest, or 90 seconds rest, whatever. So I'm like, let's see what I can get from my first set. That was always the goal, like to PR on that first set. That's how I approached it. So cool, we get the first set, we get the second set, we get the third set, we get the fourth set. Sometimes it would go up to 5 sets even. And I get to the 5th set and I'm like literally like trying to squeeze out 15. You got a minute rest on this motherfucker. So you're trying to squeeze out 15 with literally the weight that's lighter than the warm-up weight. That's my 5th set. So I'm like, bruh, is this correct? I mean, it feels correct. Like this is solid, but like, is that correct? Am I doing it wrong? You know, should I be ending with literally lighter weight than I warmed up with, you know? So I'm like, cool. And I remember I watched you guys do it, and the weight that you start with and the weight that you end with, I was like, okay, good.
You probably remember, maybe you remember the part, it's in the video, where Platz, I'm doing a curl and I just have the bar and Platz is going 45 fucking pounds. And I just have the fucking bar in my hand.
Good.
Like
it's real.
He's shaming me.
Yep. That's real, man.
That was legit. I mean, and that's the reason why we did that. You know, one of the things that I've talked about, and I was really proud of the way we did this, is I'm a big believer. My dad, you know, when you're growing up, sometimes you think your dad and your grandpa and the older people are full of shit, you know, and because you're a dumb kid. You know, I think we all go through that. But my dad once told me, he said, Leo, it's hard to replace firsthand experience. That's what he told me. Albert Einstein said it in a little different way. He said, true knowledge is through experience. Same thing. Yeah. So the thing that we have always done, and I've always done this in anything that I write, is I do it from firsthand experience first. Dr. Horine, my partner, and I, we developed that program in a garage, and that was our lab. So, you know, of course, you know that the power of that is when you do it first yourself, you know first of all, how other people should implement the damn thing. Yeah. And it's from a different perspective. And yet I see too much out there. And again, maybe I'm being too harsh. I'm frustrated with so much of the information that's out there, because I could tell these fuckers don't have a lot of firsthand experience. They have just enough to be a little bit dangerous and not really to maximize their potential. That's my opinion.
Yeah. And all that to me makes perfect sense. And I kind of, this dawned on me as well, which I feel like we're kind of in the same boat, or we're in the same boat in a way, where I mentioned before, where once I did this program, this type of training, to me, it was like, if you weren't doing this, you're kind of wasting your time a little bit. You know, like, I mean, I guess if you're training for a marathon or something like this, then I get it. But bro, if you're like trying to get bigger or stronger or whatever, it's like, bro, why are you doing that when you can do this, right? And then I got certified as a personal trainer, and they told this it was kind of in passing, but kind of part of the curriculum, where when you have this idea to correct someone on what they're doing, you have to find out what they're training for. And then I was like, oh yeah, okay, that's good, that's smart. But as you think about that, like, what are you training for? Like, that's an essay question right there. This is like, even like you think someone would be like, oh, I'm just training to get bigger and stronger. It's like, okay. But it's like, if you're really training to get as big and as strong and as you can, as quick as you can, like, that's a different approach than like someone who's ahead, really like to increase my muscle mass a little and strength, you know. So there's so many goals that people have, and some of them are kind of ambiguous or whatever. So I can't just assign this is better than that onto everybody, you know. So I think a lot of times, especially nowadays, when people they're really trying to commercialize their their training, they go online training, they want like tens, hundreds of thousands of members, you know. So it would make sense, and put it this way, I think it does make sense if this is the case, where they're going to make this exercise program seem, they use words sustainable, something that they'll stick to. And the average person didn't have the goals that you had, you know. The average person is like, hey, look, I don't really like that much how I look. Can I look a little better, you know? And they're like, cool, just do a little of this, a little of that, tweak this, and keep it going for the rest of your life. And they can do that kind of stuff, you know? So it's like, okay, like, everyone's different. So other people will respond to one thing, someone else will respond to this, and others will respond to this, and and we go from there. So.
Well, and one of the things I'm hell bent on is I always talk about, number one is have a stated goal, have a sense of purpose. That's where it starts. But you have to. That's that, and you're hitting on it. But you got to be. I tell people, go have a conversation with yourself in the fucking mirror, because you need to be willing to be honest at that point. you know, about your stated goal. Just be real about that, because based on what you want might not be what you end up doing. It's like, I didn't sign up for this shit, and that's what you're talking about. You know, I have a personal training studio still that I train in myself here. And I got to tell you something, Echo. I asked a person the other day, this is what blows my mind about people, and I still get all fucking fired up. But I asked the girl, I said, hey, you know, you're really, really consistent. I don't train clients anymore. I train myself, and I have 2 partners that we go in early in the morning. Anyway. And so, but I saw this gal, she comes in, it's consistent, you know, she's kind of heavy, and she hasn't really made that much progress. You know, I said, look, one day I said, you know, you're really consistent. And I want to ask you, are you happy with where you're at with your exercise and nutrition program? Because if you want to take it to another level, I have something for you. She gave me such an honest answer, but this is actually what goes in the mind of so many people. She said, Leo, I'm just trying to not get any in worse shape that I'm in, so I can eat and drink the shit that I'm doing. And I thought, you know what? There you go. At least she's fucking honest, because it drives me nuts. And what drives me nuts as a trainer, maybe this happens to you. I can't fucking believe to this day, 40 years in this shit, I can't believe how so many people, as they're starting, the clients that I work with, as they're starting to get good results and in shape, they start self-sabotaging. I know why they're doing that. In my view, it's like all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, I have to do a certain amount of work ongoing to keep this baby rolling. Fuck that, right? Is that what you experienced that?
Not, to be honest, I wasn't a trainer for very long.
Okay.
And it was in a way for that reason a little bit, because in college I studied exercise science and kinesiology and all this stuff. Yeah. But who I would actually train with and end up like training is other athletes, because I played football. So like, a volleyball player would come, or, my other football team. So they were down to lift. They were like, hell yeah, I want to freaking lift, get strong. And then even when I was done playing football, we were still lifting. So I was like, oh, this is what training people is about. Right. I went to my first job was at 24 Hour Fitness, and bro, no one wants to work out. No one wants to, bro. They're like, it almost felt like they were like, hey, like, can you just sort of give me something to get me in shape? Like, I don't want to do nothing. But and man, that wore on me right away. So it was like less than a year over there, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me, to be honest with you.
Well, let me tell you something. I tell people sometimes, in the gym, I said, there are some people make me want to keep coming back to this gym, and some people make me want to go drink because of the shit that you're talking about. I just can't get past it. And I won't, Echo, I will never fucking get past. I've learned how to control myself enough to not piss everybody off. But it's just because I'm like, okay, my whole livelihood and my whole career has been based on how I can show you to get immediate results and long-term results in a story, and I can produce something for you that'll always work. Why the fuck wouldn't you want to do that? That's too black and white.
It's too black and white.
Too black and white, right?
They're not down for that pain, man. Because and this is probably one small element of it, but this is the obvious thing to me is when I started lifting weights or whatever, I liked it. I was like, how you get the pump and all that stuff. You're cruising with your friends. It's like you're competing with your friends. To me, it was like, shoot, the results were almost in a way secondary. No, they weren't secondary, but it was.
I know what you mean. I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
loved it, and and then the results come, and it's like, man, I'm down for that. And I played sports, so I know what the pain feels like, whatever. Because you get kind of used to that kind of stuff. Sure. I feel like you're the same way. Where if you're a bodybuilder or something like that, bro, you kind of love that. Remember the Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? Like, the pump is like coming. I was like, not coming, but I see what you're saying. So I think we kind of take that for granted, like I think when you get like a client who's not used to lifting weights, not used to the pain of working out, and they get in there and they get that DOMS, that delayed onset muscle awareness, the next day they think something's wrong. They're like, bro, you injured, so I kind of forget, we take think, and I'm like, okay, I get it. I imagine it like, the day, I don't know if you ever had a workout the next day and then maybe made a mistake and went out drinking, and it's like you're hungover and like real hungover and didn't get sleep. And then you're like, shit, I still got this workout.
Yeah.
And you know, that feeling is maybe like that times about 5 for everyone every day. Like maybe if I like imagine that's how they feel about working out. I'm like, okay, I understand.
I'm going to tell you a little story based on what you just said. This is early on in my career. I always wanted to make sure when I was training people, I always took a conservative approach because some of these people never worked out in day in their life, and I understood that. So I always took conservative, really conservative, just to see how they responded, right? I have this guy that I train. The next day, I call this guy. Hey, this is Leo. I just wanted to, maybe a couple of days later, so just wanted to make how you feeling from the your workout. He said, "Oh my God." I go, "What?" He goes, "I went to the hospital to emergency." I said, "What? Did you get hurt or something?" He didn't. Listen to this. He had never experienced DOMS, any kind of soreness. He fucking thought something was majorly wrong. Then he goes to the hospital. I go, "You got to be shitting me. He was serious."
That's real, bro. That's real.
That's real, though. That really cemented the fact that I need to take, really, because there's no possible way, Echo, that this guy could have possibly gotten hurt, because I still remember the guy, and I always use that as, because, when somebody like you and I who have a different mindset, you can hurt people pretty easily if you're not aware of that stuff, because they have no concept and nothing to compare it to, right?
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly right. Nothing to compare it to.
Let me ask you then, this is so funny that we're telling some of these stories. Okay, so what's going on in and I want you to talk about what you want to talk about, believe me, but what are you doing now? I know that I see that you have a co-podcast that you do that, and it looks like you're selling a certain supplement. I'm not sure, but do you want to talk about any of that as far as what you're doing now? Because I think I was guessing at, I was trying to guess to say, I wonder what we have in common. And one of the things I thought we had in common was I think that we're both in the personal development game. We want to help people get better.
I would say that is true, yes.
So with all that being said now, so what is it that you're doing right now? And obviously you're using your podcast to promote that, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I would say in the spirit of accuracy, what I do for a living, I am a video maker. I make videos. I do CGI stuff. I do graphic design, some print stuff like that. Yeah. That's what I do. I started that in 2009, and I've been doing that since then.
Okay.
Through that, I produce audio, video stuff as well. And in 2015, one of my friends from jiu-jitsu, I do jiu-jitsu as well. So one of my friends from jiu-jitsu just happened to be a Navy SEAL, just retired. And he had a lot of experience in leadership in some massive battles, and he was the leader of one of the most, if not the most decorated special forces unit in the Iraq War. So he was really well known as a leader in his community. Yeah. He got some exposure on a podcast, and then he went on Joe Rogan's, and everyone suggested, including me, that he should start his own podcast. Mm-hmm. So of course he's like, we could do that. And of course, who's he going to go to help start the podcast? He doesn't know about audio, video stuff or whatever. Okay. But I've been making videos with him since 2009. So he's like, hey, can you do that? I was like, yeah, I can do that. So we were already friends, and so he was like, all right. So we started that podcast in 2015.
Nice.
It did well, and throughout that time, this was more on him. I'm just sort of here for support, and I partnered with him with some of this stuff or whatever. And through that, he started a supplement company, and his whole thing was more about like clean supplements, where we don't overdo the caffeine. We add some caffeine. He just wanted everything to be clean supplements, even if it's more expensive. Clean. So. Through that, there's an energy drink. There's all kind of joint stuff, and basically all the stuff that he was taking or wanted to take, he just made his own, refined it, and he partnered with some other people in Maine, which was Origin, and basically developed this line of supplements and a bunch of other stuff. So my role in this is essentially helping support, making video, if he has some questions about branding or something like that, we collaborate. And then, so that's on top of the podcast. So I'm the co-host of the podcast as well. We actually have a few podcasts, and So basically everything he does, I'm sort of along for the ride.
Yeah.
As far as
Why
video,
yeah,
audio, you know, like that kind of stuff. So that's what I'm basically working with this guy. His name is Jocko Willink. I basically work with Jocko with everything he does. That's what I do.
And like I said before, I'm getting to know you. I'm thinking, okay, you know, you guys are kind of in the same area that I'm at because I'm in personal development. Yeah. And what I like about what you just said about his supplements, that not only clean, it's somebody that my point in the beginning was somebody who's done it to himself to find out how it really works, you know. And I like that. I mean, I'm all tied into somebody who's done it themselves. They understand that in a way that most people don't. Well, that's really interesting. You know, you never know what kind of connection that you make that takes you on this ride, right?
Oh yeah, that's absolutely correct, because I've always been into lifting weights and stuff. And quite frankly, like, to what you just said, it's funny because I was just thinking about this like before we got on, and I was like, it's weird that Leo Costa Jr. is interviewing me. I should be interviewing that motherfucker from all this stuff or whatever. It almost makes no sense, you know. But so I've always been into lifting weights, and then I started doing jujitsu as well. So when you lift weights, that's like a struggle, like that's kind of a unique struggle, really direct, really like, hey, if you go hard, you do the right things when you're not going hard, you'll get results. Pretty reliable.
Yep.
So it's like a simplified metaphor for life in a way, right? Jiu-jitsu is the same way, a little bit more complex, a little bit more of like the war approach, but it's the same thing.
Yep.
So you do that, and Jocko talks about this a lot too, where jiu-jitsu and working out and like everything is like, they're all metaphors for each other. So you can learn one lesson in one realm, and then that lesson kind of applies to everything else as well.
Yeah.
So,
you know, the thing that's interesting that you're saying that, because I've often said, you know, being an athlete, I think was very important at a young age, but bodybuilding for me saved my life. It taught me so many lessons, and this is what you're talking about, because jiu-jitsu, I'm imagining, it taught me so many lessons about life, because life is all about suffering. If you're going to grow physically, mentally, emotionally, you don't get to do that. Shit doesn't grow unless you put yourself in pain, right? Yeah. And bodybuilding is all about that fucking pain.
Yeah.
And you know, there is no internal debate in where I'm at in my life. I don't give a fuck if I'm sick. It doesn't matter. I get up at 10 minutes before 3 every fucking day, and I go down to my gym come hell or high water. Bodybuilding taught me that, because if I don't go down there, shit doesn't get done. You don't get the results no matter what. So there's no fucking internal debate.
Yeah. That's so that, like, that idea goes kind of deep. So if you flip it around, right, which this is like I think if you talk about it kind of out loud, you're like, okay, it's obvious, but it doesn't feel like this. This is what I'm talking about, where let's say you're on a diet, right? And you're not on a strict diet. You just, hey, let me clean up my eating a little bit. And then somebody's birthday comes, or Christmas, the cakes and all this or whatever. And then the part of your brain, maybe not even conscious, it goes, well, it's Christmas.
Right.
Or it's the birthday. What am I do? Like, you know, it's kind of okay. Right. It's kind of okay. Meanwhile, the reality, bro, that counts. Christmas counts. Like, everything is in play. You don't just go time out on the diet and it doesn't count.
Right.
It all counts, you know, and we kind of are, I don't know, maybe I'm just talking about me, but I feel like a lot of people just sort of like miss that part of it. You know,
they do. They definitely do. And I'm going to respond to what you're saying. You know, when it comes to the holidays, if that fucking holiday lands on a weekday, I have a certain way that I eat. It doesn't matter if it's fucking Christmas. It doesn't matter if it's Thanksgiving. It doesn't fucking matter. I eat the same way. I'm not antisocial. It's like, but people get offended all the fucking time. It's like, look, eat what you want. I don't give a fuck. I'm eating at the same table. I'm just going to have this, and I'm going to stay on my diet. And, you know, when I look back, I always competed like just after the first of the year, like in the spring, early in the year, and then later on in the year. I was always dieting during those holidays. I started dieting just before Thanksgiving. So I'm just used to that.
Yeah.
Nothing changes that way. So, you know, again, that's kind of what you're saying. It's like, I can see how you want to go off. Go ahead.
Yeah.
You're going to pay for that shit somewhere down the road, and I'm just not willing to do that.
Yep. And that's, I think that right there, what you just said, is really at the end of the day, the main point. like, bro, do that. In fact, it's not all downside. There's a lot of benefits.
That's
and
right.
Actually, my friend Jocko talks about this too, where it's like, hey, if you like, think about it, right? You want to eat, let's say, just as a general person, you're not training for anything. You're not going to have weigh-ins or nothing like this. So you're like, hey, let's eat clean 80% of the time.
Yeah.
20% of the time, we're going to slack a little bit. But let's use that time to like have an ice cream cone with our little daughter, because there are so many benefits beyond just the dietary part to bonding with your daughter through food. So many cultures, like it's like the food is part of the bonding. So if you don't eat the food, you're kind of right. Like you said, people might get a little bit offended. Hey, that's real. There's more to this fucking whole life than just getting big and shredded or whatever.
I know.
So it's like, but here's the thing: it all still counts. All still counts. So if I eat a whole apple pie, I'm not saying I ate a whole apple pie. Not saying I did it, but let's say hypothetically you eat a whole apple pie, just like how you said, bro, you're gonna pay for that. Right. You're gonna pay for that come Monday or whenever or whatever, or you're gonna pay for it in that little bit of weight that you're gonna gain, or that little bit of that effect on your health or whatever. So hey, the point is, it's all in play. It's up to you how you're gonna play that, though. Yeah,
one of the things talking about, I like to enjoy life like everybody else. Believe me, I just have this mindset. But I went to Italy a few years ago for my birthday. Have you ever been there, by the way?
I've never been to Italy, no.
Changed my whole fucking life, man. I bought a house there. After I went there. Anyway, that's beside the point. But here's what I came up with as far as, okay, so if I'm that person that wants, the average person and myself, if I want to take a trip to Italy, they've got fucking fantastic food, man. You don't want to miss out on that. You don't. So here's what I did. I call it banking calories. So what I did is I said, okay, how many days am I going to be in Italy? And I said, here's how many calories that I want to eat while I'm there. It was like 6,000 calories a day. I wanted to really enjoy this shit, right? Yeah. 6,000. Okay, I did math. I'm going to be there 6 days, 36,000 calories in 6 days. So what I did, and maybe this is just too simplistic, but it worked for me. So what I did is I said, how long is it going to take me to burn an extra 36,000 calories before I go? And I did that math, and I started doing cardio, I don't know, 4 months before I actually went on the trip. And the thing about it is, this is how exact you can get this thing. As a bodybuilder, I knew that because we're all in these calories and how to produce an exact result. So obviously, before I left for my trip, I dropped weight. I go to Italy, I ate my fucking ass off. Yeah. I came back and I was right exactly where I was before I left. See, now people usually do it the opposite. They go, oh, fuck, I'll just, when I get back, I'm going to go enjoy myself first. Yeah. And they never do. I thought, you know what? Before you train a dog, before you give a dog food, go train him. And that's my, it worked. So that's another option, right?
Yeah. The reason that's so funny is it's like, so I had surgery on my knee a long time ago, right? And the doctor was like, hey, before you get surgery, go ahead and like beef up those muscles so you can endure. So the post-surgery, rehab and all this stuff is a lot easier. So because your body's a little bit prepared for that, what's coming, So I'm like, man, that's kind of the same thing in a way. But here's what's funny about it. I can just see you like on the freaking elliptical, freaking on the hill in the snow or wherever. And like friends are like, hey, what's up with Leo, man? He's training all hard. He's like, oh, he's training for that Italy trip, that
And they're like, what the fuck? That's exactly right. But I got to tell you something. It's a tool that you can use. I'm about tools that you can use, and so many people, here's what they do. We're all this way. Sometimes we just like hearing ourselves talk and we're bullshitting ourselves. We really are. Like a lot of people, they say, you know what? I'm going to go to Italy, gain 10 pounds or whatever. And I'll take it off. Most of them never do that. And something I can see myself possibly falling into that group. I will never let myself off the hook on that. So that's just another accountability tool that I think that you can use. But that's how I did that. I thought, hey, I enjoyed life. I can do that. But then there's times where I just said, you know what? I'm just not going to eat Thanksgiving turkey and all that. On Thursday, if it's on a Saturday or Sunday, I'll go, I eat differently on the weekends. I do meals, anyway. So, but it's kind of funny how we approach certain things, right?
Yeah.
That make it worse for us.
Yeah. That's the old, pay now or pay later kind of scenario. A little bit of a twist to it, but it's good. Yeah. It's good. And bodybuilding is my life. It's what I do. It's just I tell people, sometimes you get to a point when you have so much discipline underneath your belt and time put in
that it becomes seamless. And it's not that it becomes easier, because I take myself to task to this day in the gym. Yeah. It never gets easier, but it's a part of what I do, and it's seamless. But I just make it, any pro that makes it look easy, those guys have done so much work to make things look easy. Yeah. And so it looks seamless, but it's actually hard.
Yeah. Yeah. That discipline thing where, man, in bodybuilding, I would imagine even more so than, like, in my case, playing football or doing jiu-jitsu competitions or whatever, where like the discipline with your diet, like that's a big one, right? Because it applies 24/7. Like if you get your workout in, you're kind of done for the day. You got a lot of other responsibilities, you got to rest, you got to diet, but that diet thing, like the clock, the monitor is always there, so you can do like, let's say if you're lifting and you got, a minute and a half between sets, you start going 2-3 minutes. It's like, whoa, you're stuck on your lifting. Right. But when you're done lifting, lay down. Right. Lay down, do whatever. I can rest all I want. Diet's not like that. No. Right? You eat your diet, and that's sort of it, So with, a bodybuilder or whatever, or anyone who has like a weigh-in scenario where they got to make stuff like that, you develop that dietary discipline so well. And bro, that helps a lot. Just that getting used to being hungry, getting used to stuff and not like giving in, bro, that's a freaking skill right there.
No, really, yes. It's funny that you're bringing that up, because there'd be times like right before my show, maybe a couple weeks, I go through periods of I'm so damn hungry. I'm so damn hungry, and I know I can't eat anything. So here's what I would do to play with myself, a head game. I go to the fucking kitchen in the refrigerator, and I just open and look at the foods I could have. And then I close it and go back to my chair. I said, stupid. I was that hungry, and I knew I couldn't have it, so I did it anyway. I went and looked at it. So one day, it's not too long, I'm going to have you bitch. Anyway.
That's real, man. That's real.
That's the way it was. Yeah, and my wife's looking at me. Of course, this wife is, she competed, so she gets the madness, right? I understand. The first one didn't get it. All I heard from her was, why can't you be normal? I said, I'd rather die than be normal. Fuck that. Next question, right? Oh God. Anyway, okay, so let's move a little bit a little more forward. What's going on, and where do you see yourself going? I know it's hard sometimes to figure out like the path, because it kind of just happens sometimes, but where do you see yourself going based on where you're at now?
I think, like, personally, I really like the routine that I've been kind of settled into, because it's not really set. It's always like, trying to either keep things afloat or, little goals or whatever. So I feel like the people that I'm around is really like, it's a really solid group. So I'm just going to, maintain as far as that goes. I like what I do for a living. There's a few things like, in real estate that I've done in the past a little bit that maybe I'm going to get more into that, as I get older or whatever. But as far as lifting weights and jiu-jitsu and living a healthy lifestyle, which is just sort of normal nowadays, that's always going to continue. I think, and I actually just talked to Jocko about this on one of our podcasts, is like lifting weights and like doing a workout every day, pretty much every day. You get one day a week or something like that you don't, but that's like a given and it's never going to stop. So I build my own weight room, and so it's like part of your life,
It's what you do.
Yeah. And I'm going to keep that going till I die. And, I have kids now, they're growing, they're little still, but, so hopefully I can impart some of this stuff on them, where they can find value in that as well. And so I'll be there monitoring and coaching them. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Kind of more of the same, really.
Yeah. Again, I have my kids, I have one that's just turned 41. And then one is 30, that's about 16 months apart. So whatever that is, 39 or 40, something like that, 39 and 41. Okay. And I told him something that I would highly advise if I was to give you any kind of, because when you get older like me, you just want to give people advice. You can't help yourself, But I told my kids when they graduated college, I'll never forget it. I said, look, here's my take, because I left a family dairy. I was supposed to be the next generation. I was like a black sheep back then, because I decided I didn't want to, I didn't have passion for what I was doing. Mm-hmm. I was miserable at the age of 27. Mm-hmm. And I promised myself that if I ever got something that gave me buzz in the belly, and because I thought I wanted to be a pro athlete, but at that age with kids, highly unlikely that shit's going to happen. Yeah. Nevertheless, I made myself a promise. If I ever get something that turns me on like the sports did, I'm not questioning that shit. It happened when I got, all of a sudden I started weightlifting and I did my first bodybuilding show. I thought, there's that fucking buzz that I've been missing, right? Yeah. I said, I'm going to be a personal trainer. And at those days, Echo, believe it or not, in my area, there were no personal trainers. You can find them in LA and San Francisco, but not in my area. Nobody even knew what the fuck a personal trainer was. They thought I was an aerobics instructor. I had to educate them. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it taught me a lesson because you know what? When you have passion for what you do, the obstacles look different. They're still obstacles, but they look different because you love it. Yeah. You know, and I told my kid, whatever you do, make sure that you have passion for what you're doing and that you love it. It doesn't matter what you do, because when you have that passion, you'll figure that the rest of the shit gets figured out.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, big time.
And I've lived by that. I live by when I'm doing certain things, I just say, even like with video, I do not shoot a video like I shoot these posts on a regular basis. I don't shoot anything that I just don't have passion for, because it comes off fake. Yeah. And I just like it. And I don't want to fake my life. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, understand. And that's a good thing to be really conscious of, right?
Yeah.
And you can kind of force it sometimes. You know, you got something that you have to get done and you see obstacles and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do this or whatever. But if you see it as, hey man, this is part of the gig, this is part of the game. And in fact, like a goal with no obstacles, it's like, man, it's not even a goal. Like no one's going to do that. Like no one cares about that kind of stuff, you know? Nope. So sometimes like I'll try to do my best in framing it as like a video game kind of a scenario.
Right.
Where, you know, like after you beat the easy levels, you're kind of like, oh, let me get to the harder levels, you know?
Truth is that there's no personal growth unless you're challenging yourself on ongoing. That's just the way it is, you know? And then, so get back to my advice to you, and you're doing it. Follow your passion, baby. I mean, everything else is just, you'll be a lot happier, you know, because I've been really, really, really miserable because of the fucking job that I was in. I just hated myself, you know?
Yeah, agree. And thanks for that advice. Thankfully, I stumbled upon lucking out having a friend that who he was and my skill and his skill meshed, and I get to just talk with him and make video, you know.
It's a beautiful thing, man. You're lucky, just like I am, very fortunate. But listen, sure. I really want to thank you so much for coming on. I'm always honored, especially when I find out people that have used my program. It's so humbling. I can't even tell you how that makes me feel. But it's been an honor to have you on. And hey, I'd like to do this again someday. If you've got something going on, feel free. I feel like, as anybody who's on my program, they're automatically my brother, whether they like it or not.
Agree. And man, again, I mentioned this before. It's funny even hearing you saying thank you to me, because I'm like, man, freaking Leo Costa, shit, thank you. All right. Man, you've been like literally, like I said, literally the work that I'm doing later today, part of Serious Growth.
Right on, baby.
I'll never deviate. So thank you for your time, and thanks for talking to me.
I'll be thinking about you. You take care, and then we'll talk soon. Okay.
Yes. Looking forward.
Thank you, Echo.
Right.
See ya. Bye-bye.